Hello. I'm going to put a little thing on to play here for a bit and then probably put a link and see if people want to come talk.
With Pastor Nate Wright and our president and founder, Dr. Joe Boot. And today we discuss how the Ezra Institute called our shot. 9-ball corner pocket. In other words, we're going to talk about all of the erroneous responses to Charlie Kirk's ministry and martyrdom that we foresaw last week. Welcome back. This is the podcast for Cultural Reformation, brought to you by the Ezra Institute, where we equip current and emerging cultural Christian leaders with a robust biblical worldview. We really believe the world needs God's word at this time. Of course, we do that through in-person training, conferences, and a wide range of print. We're discussing this tragedy that is the murder, the cold-blooded murder of Charlie Kirk. And we want to recap or, springboard off of the conversation that we had last week, where we were concerned that people would frame Charlie's death in a wrong way. And I think particularly, guys, where I'm concerned, and I want you to jump in right away, I'm just concerned particularly in the Christian world. So I was thinking this morning, if I were alive when, Richard Wurmbrand went missing, I think a legitimate question in the Soviet Union at the time would have been, well, would churches publicly acknowledge that he went missing? Would pastors report on that? He was taken away in a car. His family didn't know what happened to him for years. And there would have been this question in the church: are we going to own Richard Wurmbrand and the work that he was doing, or are we going to overlook it? And that's how I'm feeling today. So, of course, online there was this ongoing debate. Pastor, will you mention Charlie Kirk? Pastor, will you acknowledge what happened? And you had this response back and forth as to how Christians were going to respond. And so my great concern with what we've seen from the Gospel Coalition, we're going to be talking about 2 articles from the Gospel Coalition and Christianity Today, is that, again, there's this group of the church who seems to be not willing to own Charlie Kirk. He's been shot, the funeral is set, and like Richard Wurmbrand has been put into a car, he's been taken off into captivity in silence, and there's a number of people saying, okay, we're okay with that, or at very least we're struggling to own him. Joe, what are some opening thoughts you've got?
Well, I think you have correctly identified the challenge, the difficulty that many believers church leaders are not willing to own Charlie Kirk or really address this situation. Now, personally, I was very heartened when I went to my own local church Sunday morning that this was dealt with in the prayers, and there was even an announcement in the church bulletin to pray for Charlie Kirk and his family. But at the same time, I received phone calls from relatives who were disgusted and actually hurt that in their own churches here in the UK, nothing was mentioned, not a peep, nothing in the prayers, nothing in notices, never mind it being, addressed in a sermon. I was blessed by the fact that the opening chapter of Nahum was selected by our minister, and he spoke of the whirlwind, the judgment of God. He was clearly addressing what had gone on this past week. But I don't think that's the majority report at all. And I think it's hugely disappointing. I think there are a lot of very, very disappointed Christians out there this week who have gone to their churches hoping to hear at least the family prayed for, a sermon that's relevant to the issue, some kind of owning of what's gone on. And we're getting what we saw, Michael, during the COVID era, which is bury your head in the sand, rise above the fray, as one TGC commentator put it, and basically avoid or ignore the issue. And I've been seeing a lot of deeply problematic anti-Americanism from Canadian commentators and some British commentators, as though really, while this is just America, political violence in America is normal. These people, one way or another, have brought it on themselves, is either implied or explicit. And I think on the whole, well, it's largely what I would have expected. As you said, Michael, you know, we called this top right-hand pocket last week. And unfortunately, this is largely what we're seeing. And it says to me that for the most part, with perhaps large swathes of the American church accepted on this, so you would be able to comment more effectively on that, the same failures are showing up again. And the same unwillingness to face reality, to face the political implications of the gospel, and to own a brother who's been defending the cause of the gospel on campuses, whether or not you agree with all of the questions, the way he's answered all of the questions on some of the political type questions. But remember, part of the difficulty here, when people want to continue this ludicrous notion that you can separate the claims of Christ and politics, is that when Charlie Kirk is being asked questions, any Christian apologist knows this who's on the student campuses. When I've given a lecture, say, on a Christian philosophy of science, the Q&A comes up and I'm being asked about the LGBTQ movement and the Crusades. It's got nothing to do with my topic, but those are the first two questions out of the mouths of the students. And so the difficulty is that we have so ecclesiasticized the gospel, we have so ecclesiasticized the Bible, that is, we have imprisoned scripture and the gospel within the four walls of the church into an upper story of grace from nature, that what's happened steadily is that the issues that are considered addressable by Christians, by pastors, that have shrunk, right? The number of issues that you can really address have shrunk down to the point where it's just a few vague propositions about God, or some specific salvific soteriological propositions about the salvation of your soul in Jesus. And beyond that, the issue of abortion, of life, beginning and end of life issues, marriage, human identity, sexuality, all of these theological, biblical issues that were central to the Christian worldview are foundational to the gospel. Marriage, we've talked about before on our program, fundamentally foundation to the gospel, because scripture begins with a marriage in the garden. God describes his relationship to Israel as a marriage. Actually, he relates to Israel as both father of the bride and spouse of the bride, because God, of course, is Father and Son, and Holy Spirit. Therefore, he sustains both of those relationships to Israel. Then the relationship of Christ to his church is described as the bride and the bridegroom. That's the chosen image for the church in the Newer Testament. And history ends with the marriage celebration. So these things are central, absolutely central to the meaning of the gospel. But because we have imprisoned the word of God and the gospel, we've ecclesiasticized it within the life of the church and the private life, so-called, of the Christian, all of these other issues have been deemed political, secular. They're the issues of nature, grace, dualism. This is just the secular space. These are the neutral subjects. These are political issues, and politics doesn't belong in the pulpit, and Christians should avoid politics, which has steadily, over the last 80 years, given us less and less and less to talk about. And yet, if you're a Christian apologist, you know full well, as soon as you get on that college or school or university campus, and you're presenting a message about Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter what your theme has been, these are the questions that will come up. These are the challenges that will be put to you. Cultural, civilizational, political challenges. And we'll come in a moment, a bit later on. I don't want to say everything now about how this expresses itself in the life of the early church. But we've so truncated the message of the gospel that everything else has been handed over, really, to a secular neo-pagan state, and is considered part of the realm merely of nature, that the Bible doesn't directly apply to it, and that therefore these issues need not be addressed. And so that dualism that we saw playing itself out during the COVID era in such dramatic and destructive fashion has, in many respects, in the quarters that we would expect it at least, played itself out again. Now, to be fair, I think we are also seeing a broader good signs of awakening in other parts of the church, in the younger generation especially, and more broadly in other networks and movements. But many of the gatekeepers of the evangelical world are pumping out the same tired, irrelevant kind of messaging that is trapped in this dualistic prison. And it was one of the things that Charlie Kirk said, actually, that was pointed out in one of these articles, not necessarily in a positive way, that he talks about political clashes and cultural conflict were really one big fight between opposed worldviews. And he was right about that. He understood that this is a conflict of worldviews, and that Jesus said, "Occupy till I come." This came up in one of the articles. That's Luke 19:13. And he says, I realize, this is Kirk, quoting Kirk, I realize that there is a desire for revival in this country, that there is a yearning for a different type of Christianity. It's about preaching a gospel and bringing a nation to repentance, which will then lead to revival. And he saw and he recognized that his generation was tired of this pietistic, escapist, retreatist, dualistic Christianity that ecclesiasticized the word of God and let culture and the world go to hell in a handbasket and just throw up our hands and say, well, say a few prayers about it. We're getting out of here anyway. And that, I think, we're still seeing that played out in some of these evangelical broadsheets, that some of the noted evangelical magazines and some of these evangelical organizations are trapped in the same prison. So we're seeing a mixture of reactions, but I would say the dominant reaction remains the reaction we saw during the COVID era. It's retreatist. It's often cowardly.
Interestingly, Joe, when you say that,
Cool. Well, I think I listened to a little bit more of that before, but thought it was pretty well said. And I sort of struggled with some of the reactions I was seeing to people like trying to weigh the value of this versus other things, and like, oh, is this the worst tragedy? Well, here, and people bringing up other tragedies and things, and I think that well, let's see. I'll post the link if anybody wants to watch that video later. I didn't finish watching it. That's about as much as I had watched, but I thought it was a good opening statement that he made there. Obviously, there is a greater there are tragedies in which the people who suffer have less responsibility, I guess you could say, for why it happens, or we say when things happen to children or something like that, it's much more cut and dry to say, like in a school shooting or something, that the people who died did nothing wrong, and the person who does the killing did everything wrong, and that's easy. It's an easier statement to make and to say, yeah, there's no problems there. So obviously, because that's a pure victim, I guess you could say. They're not really a martyr, because a martyr is someone who's standing for something and dies for what they're standing for. Now with Charlie Kirk, everybody's getting mixed up because some aspects of what his message was more political rather than less strictly religious. And I think what Joe Boot there was putting a good point forth is that you really can't disentangle those two so neatly as we would like. You could, when everybody was Christian, find Paul Vanderklay's clip of Tim Keller talking about how 80% of the people were roughly Christian and went to church. Then you could have politics be a agree to disagree thing. But the thing that really bothered me was sort of the lack of compassion, I guess, or people not understanding the reasons why it is a tragedy, because I think it is a tragedy. And probably the responses make it more of a tragedy. Because I was thinking about in the Bible when you have, so let's say this, you have these cut and dry, clear instances of evil. You have it in Exodus, you have it in the Gospels, where the king is ordering the death of the sons, all the male children. And I was thinking about this because there's definitely a lot of misandry in our current culture, and the feminist movement really has come to disdain men, and we often teach boys that there is something wrong with them from a very young age, and I don't think that message could have escaped the attention of the killer to some degree. I'm sure it was a large contributing factor, even though he may not have explicitly felt that. He may not have had the right-wing reaction to it. He took it, but either way, the reaction is still there because there is no great tolerance for masculinity that's not been smoothed out and the rough edges knocked down. And so then you get into the aspect of like, okay, well, men are to defend women and children. And I don't know if I'll play it, but I did watch another one. So the big mega church here in my city, I watched their sermon from Sunday just to see what he would say. Let's see. Let me see here. And he kind of started off his sermon with it, and he did some of the balancing statements and stuff that like everybody's doing. Like, and okay, I understand that, especially because his church is like, I don't know, 10,000 people or something, or many thousands of people, and there's definitely a lot of varying views. Not everybody is united in one place. You can have more types of unity in a small church than you can in a big one, obviously. That we value that unity that you can have as a big church. So he puts his balancing statements in there. I'm trying to find it, but he did say some good things. I don't know. It was like an hour long, and I don't know. I listened to like a half an hour, and I just don't know if it's like, is this the sermon now? Like I thought it was like an opening announcement, but he talked about like cancel culture was bad. I'm trying to find the part that was good. That I well, just put it here. I don't know what he was saying.
All in the name of their ideology, which, by the way, has become a religion all by itself. All by itself. And here's the truth of it. And we wonder how Hitler slept at night, exterminating the Jews. You know how? Because he called them not human, labeled them. It's why we look back on the stain of our culture in American history and go, how could people have been enslaved? How could my black brother and sister be enslaved? You know why? Because they were called less than human. And that's what happened. So you degrade them, you dehumanize them. And this is what we're seeing even in the Islamic faith. How can you rape women? How can you suppress women? How can you yes, you may agree with their gay lifestyle, but it's not worthy of throwing them off a building. and nobody says anything. How do you sleep at night? Because you think your ideology, you think you're doing the world a favor in the name of your God. So make them less than, and you say out loud, they're not worthy to live. That's what's happening in the world. But then this is what shifted. This is what shifted. Because now, pastors are speaking, Pastor Ed, listen, it's different because here's the truth. Once more, I don't agree with everything that Charlie Kirk said and did. But when it came to him confronting the atrocities and the debauchery of the day, I stand in agreement that marriage is between man and woman. I stand in agreement that man and woman are the only two genders. I stand in agreement that pro-life, God-given, abortion is wrong. Can it be forgiven? Yes, it can be forgiven. It's wrong. Evolution, that I evolved from some amoebic pool of matter? No, sir. I don't care what that textbook says. I was made in the image of God. I don't care what degree you got. Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, my word says something different. Fearfully and wonderfully made. So when it comes to the purity of men and women, marriage, preserve purity. We reject relativism. We believe in an absolute truth. So you have to look at this and go, and this is what our pastors are saying. Pastor Ed, we're a church that stands 10 toes down on truth. But here's the sobering reality. I want you to listen to me. So who's next? Charlie, who's next? Who's next? And I want to make this statement, but a holy boldness is rising. A holy boldness is rising. And it's already in the forms of its intimidation tactics. I mean, this has been just one.
Yeah, so most of that was good, and he said a bunch of stuff before that. I didn't finish watching that one either. It's funny, though, I realize now, so there's a guy that goes to the Bible study at my church, and that's the church that he goes to, where that preacher was. And, like, he has so many of similar mannerisms. I don't know if it came from, like, just sitting in there for a long time, but it's kind of funny. But, you know, my thought about this was, like, so in Egypt and in Israel, you know, in at the time of the Exodus and the birth of Christ, you know, there's these genocides being performed on the male infants, and it's because you have these corrupt leaders who are fearful to lose their base of power, and they are threatened by the strong men coming to maturity. And so somewhere in that sermon, he talked about how, like, might sound sexist or whatever, but you know, I believe that it's a man's job to, like, protect the women and the children, and this is, you know, rooted in the Bible. And so it's like, yes, that's great, and we believe that. And the thing I was thinking about is, like, yeah, so Christians, I think a lot of Christians understand that, and they do mean it in that way. But the rest of the culture really does not. But they are totally fine with men continuing to do that sacrifice. But they, you know, like, because no one is saying equality means women should be dying to save men. Nobody thinks that. But if a man dies to save women, it's almost like it's a double win, because the woman's saved or the children are saved, and a toxic man is lost. And so this vilification of men is so rampant, and that's a big part of why you even have people making these balancing statements and stuff and having to say, I don't agree with all these things. It's like, well, nobody agrees with anything that somebody says 100%. And it's almost to play into the whole lie that, like, speech is violence. Like, I have to couch what I say about somebody because of the words that they used or the ideas and opinions they expressed. And, like, there's been a lot of bad guys beaten up by good guys that don't say or think the right things. The good bad man is I think, is the way, like the John Wayne guy or whatever. Well, it's like we needed those guys, and the thing is so it's like, okay, and if you want to say that Charlie Kirk was that kind of a guy because he's in politics, it's like, well, there's 100 people with worse opinions than him that are more notorious, and there's probably 1,000 people with worse conduct than him as far as conservative influencers. So like, you just knock it off with worrying about that, because the thing is that he was out there because he felt it was his responsibility, and this is the kind of a thing. I think there's a certain cowardice that can come along with becoming a father, and you want to be like, well, I have a family to protect, so I will protect them by not ever sticking my neck out. That's going to backfire, and Charlie Kirk didn't do that. But it's like, I don't know the guy, but his whole life, like, I was talking with Jacob about this yesterday. It's like his life has been public since he's like 17 years old. If there is something truly atrocious that could be dug up on him, it would have been by now. It doesn't seem that there is, and I don't think there is, because I think he was, it's very clear that he did see the Christian biblical basis for the particular political positions he held, and sometimes he used rhetorical speech too to get a point across. Like, like as I was writing up things, I was like, okay, if I put a Substack out there and it's called Charlie Kirk's assassination is a greater tragedy than a school shooting, maybe I'll get some likes there. But I mean, I think it's honestly true in one sense, in that when men sacrifice their lives for women and children, they don't do it because women and children are better. The men are better. The men are the best ones, and they are doing it so that those who are not yet at that place where they can take care of themselves, where they can defend themselves, will have the opportunity to grow, especially in the case of children. So, and like, I think this is the thing I came to a realization a long time ago. Like, as a Christian man, if I don't speak, and now I'm going to have a boy, so it's going to be even different. I have 3 daughters, soon to have a son. If I don't speak truth and face the consequences of that, how can I expect them to believe that truth? They won't. I prove that it's true. I prove that what I say I believe is what I believe by the way that I live my life. And that was the way Charlie Kirk lived his life, and people don't have an appreciation for that. But the problem is that as a culture, if we don't appreciate that, we lose the basis for valuing all the other things. Because, if you want to say like, oh, a school shooting is a worse tragedy because all those children are innocent. Well, only when you have a culture of strong fathers do people care about innocence. Because if you go back to the time of Christ, nobody cared about infants. They would expose them to the elements. They would discard them, and they would be crying, and people would walk right by because it was weak, and they didn't care about weak things. They valued strength for the utilitarian function that it could serve. And when it was dangerous, they would attack it, when they saw it in other people. And so the thing is like, it's no coincidence from a Christian standpoint that the image of the greatest sacrifice is not Christ dying as an infant. That would have been tragic. It would have, he may have still had the same redemptive purpose, in the whole soteriological sense, if he had died as an infant. But the wickedness and evil in the world was most exposed by killing him as a good man in the prime of his life, a man in his 30s. Because if it's what that man exists, but you either have him become a knight or a barbarian, and only knights defeat barbarians. If you get all barbarians, it's game over for your culture. You go back to the Stone Age, and so if our Christians, especially, can't understand and appreciate like what it looks like to see a man live according to his convictions, it doesn't matter if we disagree with him, because he lived by them more. Okay, Jacob's is telling me to put on his channel too. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you disagree with somebody. If they speak with more conviction, like that's who the other people are going to believe. What convinced people about what most convinced people about Charlie Kirk is the degree to which he believed what he said, not necessarily the arguments that he made in defense of those beliefs. Because a lot of us could make those same arguments and no one would care at all. And a few people probably didn't care, like many people have said, he may not have convinced the people that he was arguing with, but the people that were looking on saw that one person was saying a position because they genuinely believed it. They believed it in a way that fit into a fully integrated life that affected his political beliefs, but also, his beliefs about family and faith and all those things. And, the other person is looking like a kid having a tantrum. So if you appreciate and fully understand the weight and tragedy of death, when it's freely given up by men with great convictions, that is the basis from which you can have a society that also takes the tragedies of the loss of children seriously. Especially because like you have all the let's say the people that vote the other way want to say, oh, is this really that bad of a tragedy? I mean, come on, what about like these school shootings and stuff? And it's like, okay, well, if a school shooting is a worse tragedy than the death of a good man in the prime of his life, because the children are more innocent, well, then you also have to go the full like pro-life argument down to the fetuses and embryos, because they're the most innocent. So if that is your basis for like what is the most tragic, then you should be knocking on doors and trying to get people to stop destroying embryos, if that is what you believe. But people don't believe that. It's not how they actually live. Yeah. So if people understand, I mean, because here's the thing, even to say like, it's a tragedy because like who is raising their children to be better grown-ups than that? I would be ecstatic if my son had that level of conviction and lived with such integrity, even if he believed things that are different from what I believe. I would respect anybody. This is why I don't respect a lot of the people on the other side of the political aisle, the leftists or liberal or whatever you want to call it, the Democrats, because none of them live with that kind of conviction, unless if their conviction is to go like full evil. They don't live that way. So And I don't know. And this is something I've kind of just been thinking. It seems it's very true. I mean, this is some of what John Vervaeke's talked about, how the what people believe, the credible witness that they see, like in their parents and the people growing up around them. If your parents say one thing and do another, your kids won't take it seriously. They'll find somebody who does. And I think a big part of the problem with this is that Christian people have been really wishy-washy, and they've seen the kids see their parents bring them to church, listen to the message. It doesn't affect their parents' life at all. And then they find somebody who says, I'm an atheist and I believe in materialism and it allows me to live my life any way that I want. And the way that they want to live is as hedonists, but they're able to live with far greater conviction than the Christian parents that are being wishy-washy. So who does the kid believe? He believes the person that shows him what an integrated life looks like. It's consistency. Yeah. So, and I think, I'll have lots of grace. Like, I think anybody that's disappointed that their pastor didn't say anything, I don't know how many people in this audience have experienced that or whatever, but if the broader world ever hears of this, don't leave your church without first trying to reach out and email your pastor. Email your pastor and tell them, I wish you would have spoken about this. And chances are, if they saw any of the things that have been out, they might have realized, man, I really dropped the ball. And hey, they can do it this Sunday, because that, honestly, and this is the thing that is amazing about Christianity, is that sometimes, every once in a while, you get somebody who lives with such conviction and integrity that they just come across as like the real deal, and they don't have to be making balancing statements all the time, and they don't have to be taking back the things that they say. But for those of us who don't, the next best thing is for us to repent of our mistakes and own them. And that was what that video by the Ezra Institute was about. It was about owning Charlie Kirk. Well, if we can't own Charlie Kirk, then at least we can own our own mistakes. And that does, you don't have to be an amazing person to admit when you're wrong. But if you can't admit when you're wrong, you're kind of screwed. So, yeah. So the link's out there if anybody wants to come and talk. I don't know. I guess I could put this video back on or something otherwise.
One of the most interesting weeks for me because I'm navigating in and out. Listen, if you don't know me, I don't operate in an echo chamber where I've surrounded myself with people that agree with everything I believe. I just need you to know that. Like, I operate with people that go, hey man, I fundamentally disagree with you. But man, thank you for loving me. Thank you for caring about me. You call my lifestyle sin, but yet you love me. And I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of junk I'm working on in my life, and it's sin too, man. And we need Jesus. I mean, that's what we need. But
hello, Andrew.
How's it going, Michael?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. I should be sleeping.
Did your pastor talk about Charlie Kirk in church?
Yeah. What did he say? It wasn't in the sermon. It was in the coffee hour. They usually do like a little talk. What did they say? I think he wanted to leave the politics out of it, but he was appreciative of the integrity of the dude and also the willingness to reach across the aisle and also standing up for traditional values. Yeah, that's about it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think it's good. It's like, it's just weird to not address like something that's an elephant in the room like that. So it's good to say something, you know. I mean, unless if you're going to say he was a bigot, it's good that he's.
Yeah.
Zep said, "Would you say authenticity aspect is more important to Gen X than other generations?" I don't know. I'm a millennial. I think I wrote about my thing about authenticity and sincerity in my book, and it's like it's weird because that's that thing people talk about in that sincerity culture got replaced with authenticity culture. But I was thinking like they really kind of go together because you can have sincere authenticity and then you can have like insincere authenticity, or you could have authentic sincerity or inauthentic sincerity. So I mean, I always like to say integrity is the best thing because then you're being sincere and authentic, and you know everything in your life is all goes together. I mean, I think that's the most powerful all the time, but it's also the thing that people get killed for a lot of the time too. Can we stay seated for traditional values? Well, I don't know. Do they have chairs in your church? Because it's the Coptic.
Yeah. There are a
Orthodox,
bunch
right?
of backsliding reformers.
Oh, they got chairs.
Yeah. They got the Roman Catholic style pews. Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes it's nice to rest in the Lord's presence. Fall
I
asleep
gotta
in church.
ask, why do you think the whole death of Charlie Kirk is important?
Well, I mean, that was kind of what I was saying, but I think like, so everybody hates men, and you know, okay, so it's like, you know, that whole thing like strong men make good times make weak men, blah blah blah. So that's the thing. It's like we're at where are we? Bad times, right? We're at bad times, and we just had a good man stand up, and people didn't like him, and so yeah, if we're not at bad times, we're heading into worse times or better times from you know, we're in pretty bad times. So but I mean, I think really it is like the appreciation of that, because if you have like strong, like you have to have the masculine fatherly you know, husbands and fathers and who are also warriors. And like I think it's, you know, this is something I kind of came to, like we really did a disservice even just by having like only the young men fight or whatever, like because fathers and husbands are the ones that have more skin in the game. So like when we ask sons to go off to war and we're not willing to do anything, if we're willing to send them and we're not willing to like support them afterwards or whatever, like we really lost our way. Because without that father like energy, you don't have a culture that actually protects the weak. And I mean, that's even maybe the thing of like feminism is women have to like become all strong and independent because they don't want to rely on men. That's really let men first, it probably let men like just slack off. And then once they see the men that have been slacking off, they hate those guys. And so then they start demonizing them. And then they start saying like, you know, all boys are toxic. And then, so it's just like, you know, I don't know exactly, you know, what all the shooters like deal was, but I guarantee you he grew up in a culture that did not appreciate him being a man. And he had like issues, however way he took it, you know, like it's like, yeah, it's like that guy, what if alt hissed, you know, that channel.
Oh yeah,
he had like a really good one about like it's like your life sucks, like don't like talking just about like this is like he like did the demographics of like who is his average like viewer, and it's like a Gen Z guy in like California, and just talking about how like awful it is. It's like you don't have friends, you don't have money, you have to work, but you're like barely scraping by. You can't express your opinions in the open. You can only do it online, and you have like no hope of getting a girlfriend, and you like, and it's just like, yeah, it sucks. And it's like people don't understand that, and it's really bad. And it's especially bad because like Christians and churches and pastors are like the people that could step in and do something, and they are still on the be nice, young man, be nice to the women. Like they're like on the wrong script still.
Yeah.
Times are going to get worse before they get better. I think it's probably geographically divided. I think some places things are, the people that are making times better are clumping together, and they're making it better in certain places, and where they leave is definitely going to get worse. Yeah, men dying in war is what caused the silent generation to make their children boomers. Well, I mean, they're boomers because they had so many kids, but maybe it happened forever. I mean, I think that there's a flip-flop to this thing. Like, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's like ultimately, it's like because a lot of people really see like, oh, that's like Charlie Kirk. That's not a good. It's not good that he died. Like he was one of the better, by like any measure, he was one of the better people that somebody could have picked to target. So it is a tragedy, and it seems like it's inspiring people to do better. So I think good comes out of it. But
so, do you think this is a one-off event? How do you think people are gonna move past this? Do you think people are gonna move past this?
I mean, yeah, I hope it's a one-off event. I mean, I hope not more people are getting shot. I mean, I think, like maybe it's a turning point in that way, because it's like with like Luigi, like that guy, people were like, this guy's a hero and stuff, and it's like a lot less people, I think, see this guy as a hero. And so if there's no incentive, if you're not going to get to be a hero, like, then people won't do it anymore. So yeah. So hopefully.
How do we prevent stuff like this?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can necessarily prevent it. It should be rare. But here's the thing. So I started like doing stuff on YouTube under my own name, and I didn't want to like. You can definitely like at the way it is now. It's like you definitely can get more in trouble for talking about politics than talking about religion. They are connected. Like you can't just totally separate them. But my thought was, okay, I'll focus on religion, because that's what I really care about. I really care about Christ, and if that's the reason like why I get canceled or something, then I'm like, then God's going to take care of me. I don't know that he would take care of me if I'm just trying to be like anti-vax or something, like I could get in trouble and it would benefit me not at all, So, and that was, so a few years ago, like, or whatever, when I started doing, maybe like 5 years ago, that was my thought. Like, I'll keep it on the things that I know that I really believe in and that I don't think are that controversial, and really try to help people stay positive about things. Because I think that there is like a lot to be hopeful for. I think that the more people that do it will, the better will come. So yeah, okay. Neil's kind of making that point. You're keeping me on track. So yeah, the right if you're doing it for the right reason, then the risk is less perilous, I guess. And my thought is like, if everybody that has some skin in the game, because I have kids and I'm really worried about, like, so I have girls, so I'm worried about what kind of guys are they going to be dating in the future, you know? So I really care about what's going on with the young men. So if I put myself out there and then and it doesn't, and I don't get shot, which I haven't gotten shot, so that's good. Then maybe other guys that are my position will also be like, oh, okay, well, I can do a little bit more. And if enough people do that, it's going to have a actual I think that can actually change culture, you know, that will change people's attitudes about things. But it's tempting to like just let fear keep you from saying anything. And then if the good people are afraid to say anything, then the people who aren't afraid can say whatever they want, you know? And that's something I've been trying to talk about a lot. I think is really bad. It's just the fear. Like that was like, man, COVID, like that was a big like experiment in how people respond to fear, because everything was designed to make you afraid of other people, make you afraid of, not for some people were afraid of the sickness. Other people were afraid of the shots, you know, and people were afraid, and, you know, you had all the political stuff. So it's like it's crazy. So that was, you know, the same time when all that George Floyd stuff happened. And like, I never felt weird talking to like Black people before then. But then, like, you know, in my work, I go to people's houses, fix stuff. It made it like way more like, oh, if I was in a Black person's house, just because I don't know how they're gonna respond or anything, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep this professional. So it's like I didn't do anything mean or anything because of it, but I did not feel the freedom to be as open. I was, and so, you know, that was like, that's a negative impact, and that sort of thing I think just keeps, you know, happening all over the time. Like that's even what you see with these people that are like on the left. So like my cousin, she's a big lefty, and her initial thing that she posted was like, I'm terrified for what the backlash of this is going to be, because she spent, you know, and she was terrified of Trump getting elected. She thought that he was a Nazi and that it was going to be, you know, Nazi Germany in here if he got elected. And everybody was trying to like push that in the hopes that it would convince enough people to vote against him. And because they just stuck on that one lie so hard, none of those people were mentally prepared at all to actually cope with the fact that he might win and did win. And so it's like, yeah, and obviously it's like the same thing with this. It's like everybody's like, oh no, the right is the violent ones. It's like literally they've done like, I don't know, one violence somewhere probably, but not, you know, clearly it's like the left is much more comfortable committing acts of violence than conservative people. And there's a lot of problems with like the far right. I don't agree with a lot of what's going on there, but I think like Charlie Kirk is like a normie, middle of the road, evangelical Christian, like dude. Like there's very much overlap between him and his beliefs and all that and myself. So, yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
Cool.
What you were saying about the whole response to the George Floyd thing was interesting, because what it hit on for me is the I think in general, like majority cultures tend to be more open to being engaged with. So, for instance, like, you know, there's this whole idea that like the white people are the majority, and you know they have a domineering culture, and this whole emphasis on like openness is mostly like a internal white culture thing. You know, it's a bunch of white liberals who are sad about the or guilty about the them being in the majority.
Yeah.
But what was really striking for me is on my job site, you know, there's it's mostly Hispanic people, you know, and they're switching between Spanglish and, you know, like there's macho culture all over the place. It's and they're really I don't know how to put this.
Yeah, the left's got a weird thing with they do not understand the Hispanic people, I don't think.
Yeah, I get you.
It's like 70% Hispanic people in my city, so
I think
so I'm not the majority, but
I get you. I think politeness is like a respect for privacy as like a cultural thing. It's like a cultural respect for privacy, you know. And when you have like majority cultures engaging with minority cultures, you have more politeness, whatever, installed in the game, because there's more of that. Oh, there's a difference in culture here, and you know, we might misunderstand each other, and yada yada yada.
yeah.
And I think the more that society drifts apart, like the more like politeness is going to become important, but oh no, we're not being authentic, and then, you know, all that jazz.
Well, you know, it's really interesting because cultures don't really advance that much like by themselves. In isolation, they really don't. They might figure out some unique solutions to like problems that are you know, inherent to like their geography and stuff like that. But what really causes like huge cultural leaps is when different cultures actually like work together, or you know, and they can do it competitively too, but also like you know, it's like Tex-Mex food. It's like Mexican style recipes with more Western ingredients, you know, and it's not this, it's not just, and so then people will be like, that's inauthentic. And it's like, no, it's authentic. It's its own thing. Like you've now made a new thing. And so you have like genuine progress. And, you know, you see this in the Bible too, because it's like God brings the Israelites, like they come into Egypt, then they like gain all the Egyptian knowledge, and then they go into the promised land and they, you know, fool around in there for a little while, and then they go into Babylon, and then they come back with all the Babylonian knowledge, and then the Greeks come, and then they just take all the Greek knowledge and incorporate it into it. And so it's like everybody gets smarter over time because they keep getting conquered or whatever. You know, and it works both ways, and it doesn't have to be through conquering, but that's like, I think it works the same way with like marriage, you know, because if you marry somebody that's like of a somewhat different culture, you're going to have to figure out like new solutions to things. You can, you know, it's not just going to be, we do this one mom's way and this one's dad's way. There's going to be new things where you're going to be like, well, let's just figure out our own thing. But it's funny because like the left's their way of like, we value all these minorities. They don't ever want them to change, and they don't want them to like take the good stuff.
Yeah.
They want them to, they want to keep them as like little dependent, isolated groups so that they suck off the teat of the machine.
Yeah, it's like a overemphasis on politeness, you know, like I'm not going to engage with your culture at all. You should be completely authentic, you know. You shouldn't even change when interacting with me, you know. It's
and really, because because really, and it's don't disturb the culture of the elite people that are in charge.
Exactly. Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, Christianity tells us that one political party is better than the other. I mean, no, there's. I mean, I do think like I get frustrated because like even talking about that whole thing of like how cultures like integrate and it actually does make them better. Like that's my frustration with the people on the far right is that they're worried about losing their culture, so they're all like, let's be white nationalists or whatever, and it's like that's a defensive posture that's not going to work out well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's where polite comes from, like polity, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, political correctness is a mechanism of control. Well, it's even the same thing with language, like there's like so people argue about like is language descriptive or prescriptive or whatever. So like do you define words by how people use them or like by a dictionary or something? And if you say that it has to be what the dictionary is, it's really hard to like change that or get anything new in there. And everybody has to learn all the words in the dictionary. But when people just do whatever they want, it's like they invent new slang all the time, and then we actually like get new things that happen. Yeah. So are you done with work or going to work? Are you still doing the third thing?
I supposedly I'm done with work. It's like 1:30 here. I got off at 6:30 a.m. Yeah. So it's kind of like midnight, but midday.
So when do you have to go back?
Yeah, we're running 10s, and usually I pick up Saturday or Friday. Our boss usually offers overtime on Friday. Yeah, it's good. Work is good. Nights are kind of a mixed bag, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Is that like a permanent thing or?
So I've applied for the apprenticeship program. I'm with the union. So I've applied for the apprenticeship program, and they say they'll probably be accepting in 2 or 3 months. And then once I'm in there, they're contractually obligated to find you a job, even if you get fired by your contractor, leave. Honestly, I figured once I get into the apprenticeship, I'll see if I want to leave or not, because I mean it's nights, but for some strange reason we're not getting night pay. But I don't know, I do like the coworkers and the boss and all that, so we'll see how it goes.
What electrical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And how much of your money are you saving in Bitcoin right now?
I'm not saving enough money.
You should do it, even if it's like $25 a week or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of really great for savings because it's like not as easy to just
spend it.
Yeah. But like, I mean, because I started buying it when it was like $10,000 or $12,000 or something. I didn't buy much, but I bet it's come in handy for rainy days and stuff. That it's like, oh well, I just have money that just came out of nowhere essentially because it became more valuable.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I wish I had started when I was young with stuff like that. So
Mhm.
you have the opportunity.
Yep. I'll put it on the list. Supposedly we have a 401k and whatnot, but I gotta
Yeah,
look
I got one of those. I don't know. Who knows if I'll ever like see it. I've thought about like, I've thought about cashing it out and just using it all to buy Bitcoin. It probably would. I mean, if I had done that like 2 years ago, I'd be sitting on a whole bunch of money right now. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, they've got a whatever. There's a group of LA TLC guys that have their own apartment. Yeah, they offered for me to stay up there, but it's in
who's in
LA.
there? Trey, and is it know them or?
Yeah, Trey and Elijah and David. Yeah, LA is kind of popping off. There's a whole friend group up there. So,
That's cool.
uh-huh.
I don't know if I'll ever get out there again. My sister
Well, you're
lived
always
out,
welcome.
my sister lived in San Diego, her and her husband for a long time, and then they moved here. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I could do that. But
Mhm.
I got a lot of people watching on X. I don't know if they're really watching, but it's interesting. I never streamed on X before.
Mm.
Well, I don't know. I mean, those are kind of the things I was having on my mind. So I'm putting it in writing, and I might release it. I don't know, as a really inflammatory thing, just to say that Charlie Kirk's death was more tragic than a school shooting. Jacob's telling me it's just the people that saw it, more or less. Oh, I shouldn't talk to my ex. That sounds dirty. Yeah, but cool. All right. Well, are you going? So you have to sleep between now and the next time you go to work, then, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you should go do that.
All right. Good
I
talking.
will end this. See ya.
Um,